it's kind of hard to be a numbers guy, man, and be a small town guy at the same time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially like in those mountain towns, where we were at before, you can't be all about numbers. That's the thing, where I went to school at, it was big on numbers, and
Yeah.
they would preach and say, every number represents a soul, and I understand that, but sometimes there was almost ends justifies the means to get people into church mentality. So you're having, all these crazy promotions to where, if you don't have a big promotion, you're not going to have a good attended service, especially when they run the bus routes and pick up kids and all that. And we used to tell our kids all the time, like, what are we having? They did come up to us, what are we having for church? And I say, we're having church is what we're having. That's all it is. And, we're not, I didn't do the big promotions, and our bus route stayed pretty consistent because of that, versus some bus routes, they'd have 100 kids and the next week they'd have 20 kids, that kind of thing.
Can you explain what you're talking about when you're talking about a bus route?
Yeah, so when we were in Bible college, we were required to have 2 hours of ministry on Sunday, and so part of those ministries were bus routes. And so the church that we went to, North Valley Baptist Church, ran, I'd say, about 1,500 people to 2,000 on their own. But then they had the college, and then from there they had bus routes. And so these bus routes are going to these, for the most part, lower class income groups of people, a lot of gangs and drug activity, a lot of ethnical differences, and immigrant and all that kind of stuff. And we'd go and pick up these people and bring them to church in buses, big old 64 passenger buses. And so we would go out on Saturdays, and we were required to evangelize for 3 hours a week. It was one of the requirements of the college, and we had to witness to at least one person a week. They didn't require us to see someone saved once a week, because that's not our job. That's God's job to do the saving, but we had to at least share the gospel with one person a week in these routes, and go out for at least 3 hours. And so we'd go out into these neighborhoods, and we had our own area designated to us based on the bus route. And we would just invite kids and families to church, and then on Sunday we'd go and pick them up. And they normally had some kind of promotion. They'd have nachos one Sunday, ice cream the next Sunday, they give away goldfish another Sunday, all these things. And those were, I mean, it was, I don't want to say it in a negative way, but because I did learn a lot in dealing with people and children and being in these very different from my upbringing homes. I mean, even though I wasn't raised in a Christian home necessarily, I didn't experience some of the things those kids experienced, the abuse, the crazy drugs and things like that, to where it opened your eyes, and it was a good thing. But we would go and pick up these kids, and man, I remember one time we gave away goldfish, and like one of the big things was they would always say, if we get this many kids in the church, the bus captain's going to swallow a live goldfish. That's what they would do. And so,
Oh, wait, hold on a second. When you said y'all were giving away goldfish, you didn't mean crackers.
yeah, no, I'm talking about real goldfish. Like they go home with bags of
Oh,
the
what the
goldfish. Yeah, yeah. And so there we were, and so we're on this bus. We're going down the Highway 101, and we met the goal. And so I was the co-captain. Our bus route had gotten so big that I ran one bus route whenever the captain wasn't on it, and then when he was on it, he would run it. So he'd normally be on the bus route on the pickups, and then I would run the bus route on the drop-offs. And so we would, pick up the kids, and we do junior church and a Sunday school for them, and then take them back home. And in between the end of the service and taking them home is when they normally get their prizes. And so we're driving back home, and there I am on this bus route, and they won the goldfish, or they won the competition, so I had to eat a live goldfish. And so I go to put this goldfish in my mouth, and it's alive and everything. And I swallowed them before, and to be honest, it's I'm not trying to be crude, but it's like you have a bad runny nose and you swallow, and that's what it feels like when you swallow a goldfish. And so there I am going to do that, and I put it in my mouth, and the kids like, let me see. They didn't believe I had it, so I opened my mouth, and the goldfish flipped around, and so his scales are going the other direction, and I'm trying to swallow, and then they start chanting, chew it, and so there they are chanting this, and so I take a bite, and the thing pops in my mouth,
Oh,
and it's the
dude.
most bitter taste I've ever had in my mouth. It's going backwards. I'm trying to swallow. It's like stuck in my throat. I'm trying not to gag, and I ended up having to run out to the side window and just spit this goldfish out. But the kids loved it. That's the type of show they wanted to see right there. And so I say that because it was a good time. It's one of those things where I don't think that's what you need to do every week to build a ministry, but Bible says a merry heart is good like medicine, and I think stuff like that can be good. And those, and I remember years later, kids, you're that guy that chewed the goldfish and all that kind of stuff. Kids, they were still coming to church and all that. So it was that's what a bus ministry was. We go and pick up kids in these lower class neighborhoods and bring them to church, and they would do these crazy promotions to get kids to come to church. And like I said, we just always would tell our kids we're having church, and whatever it is what it is, and just be thankful, and that kind of stuff. And so we had a good solid group of kids that came no matter what the promotion was. And there were some Sundays where we'd have these flyers. Normally it would say free hot Cheetos or free nachos or free this or free that, and sometimes it would just say free ride to church. That was the flyer. And so we'd end up picking them up and bringing them in. But yeah, that was the bus ministry. It is a unique ministry. I have tons of stories about it too. It's crazy. You had a bunch of 20-year-old kids, making them responsible for 60 kids in a bus. There's tons of stories.
Something's gonna happen, dude.
Yeah.
How many kids were on that bus?
So the maximum capacity was 64. We try to keep it at about 55 because we had workers on there too, and that included a driver and so forth. And so we try to abide by that rule. If there were more kids than we could fit, what they'd normally do is say, okay, you guys find a park and do a Bible club there. We'll bring the promotions here. And so sometimes that stuff was done. It was just like last minute. And so you always had to be ready to preach a lesson to these kids and that kind of stuff. And so we'd end up doing like a Bible club at a nearby park and just bringing them all there, and then someone from the church would come with a box of whatever the promotion was and that kind of thing. So
there's not a kid on that bus, man, that will ever forget that you're the guy that chewed the goldfish.
You'll never forget that either.
I'm never gonna forget that, man. Like, that's actually all I know about you from this moment on. Dude, that's funny, man. No, I think sometimes, man, we get so a lot of us get so turned off by a lot of the whole like attractional church growth stuff that I think sometimes we forget that like it's a good it's okay, it's good and it's healthy for like the church to have fun and to laugh and enjoy each other and just like have a good time.